November Tango, make a left traffic, runway 23.
Left traffic, 23,
711, nice job. Just say Romeo, Juliet, frequency change approved, good day.
PA, Romeo, Juliet.
Wow, that is like the most over-the-top intro I've ever heard. I think Jeff Tate would be very proud of that. Well, anyway, guys, welcome back to the Aviation Lowdown. I'm your host, LO, and this is episode 3 of the Aviation Lowdown. If you guys missed episode 2, I highly recommend you go back and listen to it. It was very mind-expanding to talk to a puppet for almost an hour, but in all seriousness, dude, I learned so much from you. So thank you so much for being on the show. And of course, thank you for helping us build our fan base. Man, we are currently #1 on iTunes in the aviation category. That just blows my mind. I mean, it's only been a week. So as I said in the first episode, this is such a passionate industry, and you guys are just proving it even more again and again. So let's keep building it, man. Wow. But on this episode, we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit back to air traffic control. For those of you who follow ATC memes, you may be well aware of the fact that for years and years, we've sort of referenced the joke that controllers are, quote, the guys with the wands, which is a reference to rampers, the people on the ground, on the ramp, getting the planes into the gate by waving those orange sticks, marshaling them in, directing them in. But we all know they're not quote-unquote controllers. Of course, the media doesn't know this, and they run with it, and we've had them publish pictures of people holding sticks and saying things like, oh, the National Air Traffic Controller Association does this and this, and it's like a ramper. Anyway, the point is, today I have somebody on the show who is neither a, quote, controller or a guy, but she does wave the wands. So coming to you via Skype, it's Nicole from Chicago here on the Aviation Lowdown podcast. And how are you today, Nicole?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm just doing great. We were just talking about how cold it is in this room, but apparently Chicago is where you are, and it might be even colder there. I'm not entirely sure.
I am in crappy Chicago right now, so it's just as cold.
You don't have a lot of hometown pride. I remember actually playing, I was in a band, we played like Tinley Park in Barrington. It was always so cold in the winter, so windy, but I always remember the food was really good. That was one thing I do remember about that place.
Yeah, the food's pretty good, but that's about it. I mean, the weather.
But it ends there. It just ends there, all the food. But yeah, I'd like to learn more about what you do. It's really sort of cliche, I guess, to have like pilots and controllers or perhaps puppets, I guess, on the show. But to have somebody who really does wave the wands, this is going to be kind of interesting. So I guess I'll start with the basics. How old are you then?
I am 21.
Okay, wow. So you started, I mean, what, were you like 18 or 19 when you first started this?
I was 19, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what made you want to get into aviation? How'd that happen?
Well, aviation has always kind of been interesting to me, but I never really saw myself in the position to wave the wands or whatever. So,
wave the wand.
Yeah, it just kind of, on a whim, I applied to one of the legacy carriers, and they accepted me, and I was like, okay, well, this is my life now. So
yeah. So when you took the job, did you have to move, or was it nearby?
No, it was actually about 5 minutes away from my house.
Oh, okay. Well, that's convenient. That's convenient. But you probably worked some crazy hours in the beginning, though, right?
Oh, my goodness. When I first started, I was 4:30 in the morning to 3:30 p.m.
Yeah, that's definitely tough for some people.
Sometimes I would work from 4:30 in the morning till 12:30 at night.
Yeah, wow, this is like true shift work then, I guess. I mean, I've always gotten up early, and I truly struggle sometimes to like sleep in, which is kind of weird. But for me, I just feel like the rotating shifts or changing it up is it can be inherently tough.
Yeah, no, it was a hard adjustment because in my previous jobs, I'd have to wake up early, but not at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough. I think you either kind of get used to it slowly or go insane, whatever happens first.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people don't realize sometimes how much shift work can affect people, like their social life or maybe their health even. But, okay, so I got to ask, you are a woman who's on the ramp. You're a minority. Would you consider yourself a nerd?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, you would. So the reason I'm asking, by the way, is because you're definitely somebody who you don't see every day. You're somebody who, is just this young girl on the ramp working the planes, marshaling them in. And I have to ask, like, are you a gamer? Are you a nerdy person?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I love video games, and I'm a pretty big nerd. I don't know
why that was so entertaining to ask, but like, I feel like people would assume you're a gamer. I don't know why.
Yes, I play video games. I really like League of Legends and Smite and
Dude, no way.
Stuff. Like,
you are just totally admitting games that you play on my podcast, aren't you? We've been doing this for 3 minutes. You're so predictable already. Right. But no, seriously, Nicole, I'd like to know what you did on the tarmac Okay, what you did on
Yeah.
the ramp. I can't use the word tarmac because I think half my followers are going to unsubscribe to me. It's not a real word, apparently, media people. But yeah, so what did you do out there?
Well, for the airline that I worked for, I was actually cross-utilized, so I never really knew walking in, I would get my schedule. So one day I would be ticket counter or gate or ramp or whatever.
Yeah, so you're kind of like, you're doing a few different jobs, but you're always interacting with the customer.
Yes.
It could be like face to face even, and it's kind of fun to think about. But a lot of people listening to this podcast, maybe they work in aviation or they're involved with the industry, but they don't actually deal with the customer face to face. And I was actually involved in customer service. It's sometimes tough, man. And I'm sure that, I mean, maybe you don't, but I'm sure you might have some interesting stories surrounding customers, perhaps.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
any notable incidents worth sharing, perhaps?
Being a gate,
Here we go.
being a gate agent was, I mean, I had my good times, of course, but let's say there's a weather delay and people look outside the window. They're like, well, the weather looks fine. I'm like, okay, well, do you know that you have to kind of go from here to, let's say, Chicago?
Right.
And there's really bad weather in between that. Logic doesn't apply. So people,
That's
when
another
they
bumper sticker
walk
I
in-
can make right there.
Yeah, right. So when they walk into an airport, there's this joke. When people walk into an airport, their brains just kind of fall out of their ear. And it's true because, you're just kind of in a time crunch, or you've never really flown before, or maybe you have and you're just kind of tired of the whole process.
Right.
So I've had to deal with it all. I've been yelled at. I've had things thrown at me. I've been called dirty names,
Wow.
everything. Yeah.
So people, they physically threw things at you?
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What was it that they threw at you? Do you know?
We had an amenities card out, and
It's an ATC memes lanyard, a bunch of stickers on it.
So we had an amenities cart out, and this lady, she just kind of picked up a tiny little water bottle and just kind of threw it at me.
Dude, that
and
is
I'm like,
brutal.
okay, so now I'm going to have to call airport authority, and you're not going to be able to get on this flight. You just ruined your chance.
Yeah, you kind of gave me an idea for a blog. If somebody's listening, go ahead and take this and steal it if it's not there already. But there should be a blog celebrating stories like that. Humanity at their worst in an airline environment. So someone get on it. By the way, so did you get any benefits working for the airline on the more operations side? I talk to pilots a lot, but did you guys get any?
I got travel benefits.
All right, nice. That's what I was going for there.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
My brother actually just flew to Europe, I believe Amsterdam, with my good friend who flies for a regional here in the U.S. But he gets mainline benefits, which I thought was just absolutely crazy. And they flew first class over there. First, it was like thousands of dollars for those seats,
Yeah.
But they thought they were celebrities. But so in a sense, you've sort of done it all. You've waved the wands. You've helped marshal the aircraft. You've helped in baggage claim and the ticket place, the ticket counter. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a long day. And you've really kind of given yourself this perspective within the airline industry that many people probably don't even have. And even my fans are probably curious about some of the stuff that you've experienced working with the customer in the terminal and stuff. But before we even started recording, you mentioned you were a security coordinator. And I don't really understand. What does this mean? What did you do?
Within all of my jobs, I received a promotion to be a ground security coordinator. So I was kind of, I had to take classes for it and everything. You have to test and you have to pass the test and what have you.
Right.
And basically, if someone is acting belligerent or if you suspect someone has a weapon on them or whatever, you are the first person that, or someone suspects that, they have to come to you.
Oh,
So I would be the ground security coordinator on duty, and they'd be like, hey, I have a feeling about this passenger.
Right.
You need to tell the TSA or you need to tell airport authority.
Okay. Yeah. So you're literally coordinating with security. That makes sense. So you probably have some wild stories. That's got to be kind of nuts, right?
Crazy story. I won't go into details.
Okay. Fasten your seatbelts, everybody.
I had this one lady, and she didn't disclose to me that she had any weapons on her. And I give her boarding pass, and she doesn't have any checked luggage. And she goes through, well, she didn't really go through TSA, but they found a gun in her purse.
Oh, so she had just a handgun just
And-
hanging out in her purse? Just
Yeah, in
whatever?
her purse. Yeah, it was just her purse.
Wow.
Like she just had a gun in her purse
Mhm.
for whatever reason. And all of a sudden, I see like 6 police officers, and she's in the middle, and she has her hands behind her back. She's crying.
Yeah, wow.
And
See,
they
people
come
out of
to
work, did she just
me.
like forget she had it in her bag or something?
I guess
Yeah,
so. I
right.
guess that's what she told the police.
Mhm.
And they come to me and they're like, "Well, why did you let her go
You're
through?"
like, are you kidding me right now? Like,
you
that-
know,
that's
I
insane.
didn't know she had a, and I'm not about to ask every passenger,
Oh,
"Hey, do you
hell
have a
no.
weapon on you?"
Yeah.
She was really mad at
Yeah,
me.
I bet.
Because they brought her back to the ticket counter because I was the one that gave her the boarding pass, and she was just like, "I can't believe you let this happen to me," and blah blah. Of course, everything's my fault. I'm just like, "Okay, lady, like you're getting arrested. I don't really care. Go on with your life."
Yeah, well, that is definitely a story you don't hear every day. But, turning the tide a little bit here back to your days as a wand waver on the ramp, most of the days I'm assuming were pretty routine. But did you ever have days where it was like that, where it got kind of crazy for whatever reason, like weather or a pilot error or maybe somebody, running across the ramp naked or something? I don't know, whatever possibly happened.
I have never seen anyone on that ramp run around naked.
Maybe some other ramps, sorry,
Fortunately.
right.
We would always just have just really, really bad maintenance delays.
Really? Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. What was
just-
the most likely thing to break down and cause you trouble? Was there anything
Well,
like that?
this actually happened because of a coworker of mine that doesn't work there anymore. They actually had the lav cart connected to the lav, and they had a 3-point connection, and they just drove off.
That's pretty
They
bad.
drove the tug with the lav cart
Wow.
still connected,
Yep.
and just completely broke
You
their
know, if I'm
lav.
ever having a bad day, I'm just going to think about that crew.
And-
That's going to really make me feel a lot better.
And all he had to say was, "Oh, I forgot. You forgot you were doing a lav?
Yeah, whoops.
Hello? That doesn't make any sense, but okay,
Yeah, it happens.
whatever."
My friend had a crazy story like that. He was working as a baggage handler in, I think, Albany or Burlington, Vermont or something, but he was loading the plane, and they had all these cardboard boxes that were sort of like unmarked and looked kind of weird, but he was putting them into the cargo hold, and one of them, his friend dropped one, and it hit the ramp, and he said that when it hit the ramp, it had opened, and out of the corner of his eye, he sees thousands of golf balls just spewing all over the ramp, and these golf balls, apparently it closed, like literally closed the airport for like an entire hour because they had to spend all that time collecting these thousands of golf balls. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're getting into the good stuff here. When you guys wave the wands, how do they train you? Like, do you have to go to school for that? How do you learn the technique and the procedures of wand waving?
Obviously, we have to go to the FAA Academy. No. So
Yeah, it's their most physical class they have there, that's for sure.
when we go through training, my training was about 3 months long.
Okay.
Not just for ground stuff, it was for everything. We did a whole month of ramp training,
Yep.
and it only took us about 2 days
Oh, that's
to learn
It's not bad.
the wand signals and commands. Yeah.
I'm picturing this high-tech simulator where like you're in this gigantic room and your instructor's on the other side of this see-through wall that's a one-way wall, and you have this gigantic wand connected to a USB input, and it's got lasers and fake planes that are sort of coming at you, and it's also probably totally wrong, but that would be
That
a
would
great
be
thing to
pretty
have,
dope,
right?
though.
What a great training tool. Someone should get on that. But anyway, in all seriousness, though,
Yeah.
no. So, like, what do you guys actually do? How do you actually learn the technique and the moves and
so-
maneuvers to work the planes on the ground?
So what we did is we had OJT, on the job training,
Right.
and we would get to the airport around 3 in the morning when no planes were coming in, and our instructor would have a tug, and we would have lighted wands, and we would have to marshal her in and place her correctly wherever the chocks were. So say we had like a CRJ 900, the chocks would be right there. We would have to marshal the tug in and
Right.
do that over and over for about 20 times. Some people would get their lefts and rights mixed up,
Yep.
or they would try to stop the plane way too soon.
Right. So you're actually using all the factors that a quote real controller would be using. You know,
Yeah.
you're using like the plane type and the weather conditions, the pilot, whatever. But Nicole, I kind of get real for 1 second. I hope you don't mind this awkward question. Okay, but have you ever practiced your wands in front of a mirror? Come on.
You know what?
Yeah, you did.
Not gonna lie. Yeah.
I knew it.
It's so nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
You know, when they just kind of throw you out there and like, oh, there's a plane coming in, marshal it in.
Right.
I'm like, oh.
Yeah, there's definitely a performance factor, you know, and it's like you're practicing fake books in your parents' basement as a musician, and all of a sudden you play in front of your first gig, and you're like, whoa, this is totally different. Everything feels different. It seems different. By the way, that reminds me, my friend told me to tell you that you guys, when you dance, you make his day. So please don't stop dancing. I've seen videos, okay? So these days, are you still waving the wands, or are you doing something different?
I actually, I work for an FBO, and I am cross-trained there. So I'm customer service representative for 2 days, and then line serviceman for 2 days.
Right.
So I still get to work out.
So it's like some
on the
diversity
ramp,
there.
and then I still get to interact with customers.
Now I have to ask you a question. Now, do you actually own wands and vests, or do they issue them to you? Do you actually own these things? I'm really curious about this.
I have so many vests. I have so many vests. I don't have any wands because they never let
I like my blue ones and my Argyle ones, and I like my Calvin Kleins.
No, no, I have a bunch of high vis vests.
It's kind of a cool word, high
which are
vis.
all way too big for me because I'm a very small female, and so even the smalls are just way too big. But I make it work. I make it look good. You know, obviously trying to impress.
Well, yeah, naturally. I mean, this is the real runway.
Right?
We got a fashion show going on in Charlie 4, you know. Remember that? What was that scene from Airplane when the guy's like, "Where's the truck? It's over there," and he's waving the wands towards the terminal, and the plane like literally smashes to the side of the. That's like one of the greatest scenes of all time. But anyway, so all right, I gotta ask now, because the wand waving is clearly like a really particular sector of working in operations. Did you ever consider going into management, or you're just sort of you're happy where you are for now?
I don't think I would want to go into management. Not right now, especially. Still learning the ropes, but I definitely, want to climb my way up and maybe do flight attending with the next couple of years, and then I definitely want to go into flight dispatch.
It's funny you mentioned flight dispatch. I was actually just talking to somebody earlier today about having this particular individual on the show, the podcast, talking about dispatch because they're a dispatcher. And I met this person at Sun and Fun last year, and we talked for like hours about aviation because, that's how we are. And I just learned so much. I had no idea about dispatch. And to tell you the truth, I still really have no idea about dispatch. So it'd be kind of nice to learn about that for sure. And I think a lot of pilots and controllers as well will appreciate that. Do you have any sectional chart clothing or aviation clothing? You have to, right?
I want to.
Yeah,
I want to get a lot.
There should be an airline that has all the rampers wearing sectional chart pants. I'm telling you, that's going to be a hit.
Awesome.
Do you have any favorite ATC memes?
Gosh, I really can't pick one because they all, I'll be sitting in the line office and I'll be scrolling through Instagram and I'll just see one and I'll start laughing and people are like, "What's so funny?" And I'm just like, I'll try to show them and they don't really get it. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of tough to make a joke that resonates with everybody. You're trying to cover as many people as possible, but actually as the site continues to grow, it becomes more difficult sometimes to make it entertaining for everybody.
It's like, what the heck?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We actually were selling wands for a while, right before Halloween, I believe. And somebody messaged me, I think they were the mom or somebody of a kid who wanted to become a ramper. And he was a little kid, all right? But she actually sent a picture, once he got these things, a picture of this kid waving these wands, and he had a NATCA shirt on or something. I'm like, yo, this is too much right now. You know what I mean? I just felt like, I don't know what we're doing. This can't be helping people, but it was really funny. It made me laugh a lot. So
that's cute.
Yeah, it was kind of cute. A lot of times these parents get into it. They want their kids to sort of be into the aviation world. They must be sick, they want their kids to join aviation.
Don't do it, children.
Save yourself, say no. It actually reminds me, I have a question here now. Okay, if a kid came up to you, a high school kid, and they were curious about going into aviation, knowing what you know now, having dealt with the industry for a few years, what would you tell them? Would you recommend it? What would you say?
It really depends on the person.
Yeah.
for me, I didn't think in a million years I would be where I am right now, and I absolutely love it.
Yep.
So I would say, if you can get accustomed to really weird,
Weird hours.
sleeping patterns and dealing with passengers and learning about planes and etc., then go for it. I would definitely go for it.
Yeah, for sure. And like aviation is not pushed as hard as other career fields, perhaps. You look at kids in high school and it's like engineer, lawyer, doctor, whatever. There's like, the standard things, of course. But then you also have people who are exploring other options. And aviation seems to be sort of an interesting one to explore early on. So, by the way, so from your experience, because now you've had, like I said, you have a few years in the industry, is there a good camaraderie amongst the coworkers? Do people get along? They all like going to work? What's your experience with that here?
Well, I mean, there are some good and bad apples. I will say that.
There always is. That's true.
My philosophy is I come to work and I'm here to ensure that everything gets done in a timely manner and to make sure that the customers are happy and that these planes get out on time.
Absolutely.
If you have a problem with me, then I'm sorry. We're all getting a paycheck. I come here, I do my job, and I go home.
Yeah.
So I don't really try to get into the drama because I don't have time for it.
Speaking of drama, all right, because we're sort of done with the technical questions of this interview, I'd like to get to know the real Nicole now. And you're 21 now, so picture yourself at a bar,
yes.
Okay? And there's two guys in front of you. One of them's a pilot, and the other one is a controller. And they're equally as attractive and otherwise sort of like the same person. Which one do you pick and why?
Well, okay, is the pilot a first officer or is he the captain?
Ooh, wow, Nicole, I didn't even think about that. All right, so now I'm in the improvisational section here. Well, I guess if there's two pilots, then that's a little unfair. You're going to pick the captain, I'm assuming. The power distance thing would be pretty real, which reminds me, not to change the subject, but last episode I mentioned power distance between the Korean air crews. It was actually the 80s, not the 90s, okay? I said 90s or 80s. I don't know, I confused them. So whatever I said, I looked it up because I was actually curious, and I was kind of right. By the way, okay, so back to something more exciting. I'm going to have to say first officer versus a controller. Okay, so those are your options. Who do you pick and why?
I think I would have to go with the pilot.
I did that poll. Okay, that was actually from a poll I did last year, and I asked the same exact question, and it was 82% pilots.
Yeah, I mean, I think
why is that?
Both jobs are pretty dope,
but something about being a pilot.
I like pilots.
Yeah, it's funny. In ATC meetings, we get messages from people all the time sending us screenshots of their online dating chats, and they just most of them seem so bad.
Oh my gosh, it's the worst.
Well, it's funny too, but you're traveling. See, first of all, the young people, it's like our generation. I'm 30, so your generation is even worse because you guys were born with cell phones, but everybody's doing this online dating thing, and it got to the point where they're like, can you make an aviation online dating app? I'm like, yo, that sounds like the worst idea. Could you imagine what would ensue from that? It reminds me though, the women in aviation you guys must have stories involving that type of thing.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
What was the craziest?
So
here we go. Oh,
I was pushing back a plane one time. And I don't know who it was. I couldn't see. But one of the pilots was like, can I have your number? While I'm pushing back this plane.
That takes some skill. It really does.
No.
Wow.
I'm like, are we good? Are we clear to disconnect? I don't want to be a part of this.
So you should have showed him your wands and said, look, I'm a controller. Why are you asking me for a number?
Right.
No pilot wants a controller's number, right? It's like that running joke. We'll give you our number. Right. Speaking of numbers, by the way, did you see that? What was it? The napkin on I think it was Delta Airlines.
Yeah.
All right. So as a female, all right, and especially one that's involved in aviation, what's your opinion of that? I'm serious here because for me, it didn't seem that weird. What's your opinion?
I don't really think it's something to be offended over, but in this day and age where there's, people get offended over red Starbucks cups.
Yeah, I get it.
It doesn't really shock me.
Yep. I think we have an ATC memes audio skit about that, actually, now you think of it. But yeah, so anything you say or do or put online, for example, or put on a napkin, it could potentially offend people in ways that you really had no idea it was even capable of offending them. it's funny too because I got so many messages of people sending me that, and they had overdubbed, not overdubbed, you know, they had edited the numbers and the name, and it said like, you have a crush on, you know, guard, and it said my number, and they said 121.5. I'm like, you guys are such freaking nerds, man.
Oh,
Like,
that's
it's kind of
cute.
cute, you know what I mean? But like, if I was a flight attendant and got that, I'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. But so
Yeah,
it's
right?
it's nice to kind of know that I mean, I'm not trying to get like political or trying to reflect my opinions in any way. I'm just saying that I agreed on some hand that it was kind of inappropriate, but on the other hand, I'm like, well, if you don't like it, just
Yeah.
put the damn thing away. You know, you don't have to give it to somebody.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, you don't have to write your number on it. You don't have to, flirt with
right.
anybody. Just throw it away or flip it over,
I was gonna say it's
just
totally now societally acceptable to just stalk people on Tinder and Facebook. Like that's the new way to flirt, right?
Yeah.
So don't give them
Right.
napkins with a number on it, though. But
Yeah, exactly. Just
don't
don't
do it.
do
Well, this has been a real pleasure so far, and I think that I just wanted to do about a half-hour show today with you and just kind of show some people out there what's involved in the world of wand waving and working the ticket counter and working the ramp. Notice I didn't say tarmac that time. Do you have
Yeah, good
any
job.
additional comments to make to my fans? The podcast has actually been growing pretty well. We had a few thousand listeners last week, so I was very happy about that.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm really proud of
Thanks.
you.
Trying.
I see that.
Well, it's weird too because I've been asked to do a podcast for like a year or 2 years, and I wasn't into it. I didn't think that there would be anything interesting that people would want to listen to because most of the stuff that I do is very visual. And so I never thought of myself as doing that. But apparently people like this. So I'm sure by now they're like, oh, get off the damn mic, but
Right.
whatever. It's
Yeah.
growing every day.
Screw those
So,
people.
yeah, screw those people. Yeah, screw the haters.
Screw the haters.
Exactly. Well, Nicole, thanks so much for spending some time with me here on the Aviation Lowdown, episode 3. In all seriousness, definitely learned something here about a part of the industry I really don't know much about. That's the people like you, the real wand wavers on the real tarmac. That's right. I can't say that word, but keep doing it with those vests. Those vests.
I'm trying.
Yeah, safety vests.
Safety
That's exactly
first.
right. And yeah, thanks again. And do you ever plan on moving and doing this somewhere else, perhaps? Not Chicago? Or just staying where you are?
I never know which way the wind's gonna blow.
I like that. I like that a lot. It kind of reminds me of what I say in memes. You never know what kind of submission you may get, but that's actually not what I say. I just completely made that up, but it sounded legitimate. Well, Nicole, hope you had fun today on episode 3 of the Aviation Lowdown.
Yeah.
And for those listening, thanks so much for listening. Episode 4 is coming later this week, featuring a very well-known pilot. I think you guys will really, really like this, so be sure to bookmark this or subscribe to it, share it, whatever you got to do. Don't miss it. It's going to be cool. Keep us the #1 ranked aviation podcast on iTunes. It's all because of you guys. Frequency change approved, everybody. Take care, Nicole.
Will do.
Bye-bye.
We're ready for left downwind departure.
Times 1 out of Quito, thanks for the help. Turn left onto Echo the diagonal. No delay off the runway, please. Contact ground.
Non-kilo.
Status Sierra Papa, and say altitude.
1,200 feet.